You spend your entire life walking into rooms and absorbing the unsaid, carrying the heavy, invisible armor of everyone else's unspoken trauma until your own spine feels ready to snap. For years, you have looked at this intense sensitivity as a defect, a broken thermostat in a freezing world, apologizing to everyone around you for feeling too much. But here's the twist. That is not a flaw. That is information. Your exhaustion is not a symptom of weakness. It is the natural consequence of running a highly sophisticated radar system in an environment cluttered with emotional noise. The moment you stop saying sorry for your deep perception is the exact moment you transition from being a target to becoming entirely untouchable. A profound curiosity gap opens when we look at the data. What if your empathy was never meant to be a bridge for people to walk over, but a highly defensive security perimeter designed for your own self-preservation? If this channel has helped you understand yourself even a little better, please hit like and subscribe. It genuinely helps more people find this content who need it. To truly understand this shift, we have to look at the architecture of the sensitive mind. For decades, traditional spaces treated the highly sensitive person as a fragile object, an emotional sponge doomed to be permanently drained by the nearest energy vampire. Here's what most people misunderstand. True empathy is not an inability to set boundaries. It is an evolutionary adaptation. In the realm of neuroscience, research shows that empaths possess highly active mirror neurons, the brain cells responsible for reflecting the emotions and intentions of others. You are literally wired to map the emotional terrain around you in real time. But when you apologize for this gift, you hand the control panel of your nervous system over to the very people who wish to exploit it. The day you stop apologizing is the day you reclaim your sovereign right to choose what you absorb and what you reject. Let us analyze the first major shift that occurs when you drop the habit of apologizing. You stop absorbing the poison and start reflecting the truth. For years, when a narcissist projected their hidden shame onto you, your immediate instinct was to fix it, to perform emotional labor, and to apologize for the tension in the room. You felt the toxic energy bubbling beneath their mask and assumed it was your job to soothe it. Think of a specialized prism in optical science. A prism doesn't create the light that passes through it. It simply splits it open to reveal its true colors. This is where the real danger begins for those who used to manipulate you. When you cease apologizing, you stop acting like a sponge that drinks in their gaslighting. Instead, you become a flawless, unyielding mirror. When they throw rage or manipulation your way, your quiet, unapologetic silence forces the projection right back onto them. They are left standing face to face with their own ugliness, unable to use your guilt as an escape hatch. That is not coldness. That is sovereignty. You are no longer volunteering to be the dumpster for their emotional waste, and that shifts the power dynamic permanently. The second profound change happens within your own biology, specifically within your prefrontal cortex and autonomic nervous system. When an empath lives in a constant state of apology, their body is trapped in a non-stop fight-or-flight response. You are chronically burned out, hypervigilant, and functionally collapsed because you are trying to balance the cognitive dissonance of knowing someone is lying while forcing yourself to act like everything is fine. Here's where it gets really interesting. When you stop apologizing for what you perceive, you give your brain permission to trust its own data. Your intuition is not a mystical, ungrounded fantasy. It is a rapid-fire calculation made by your subconscious mind, processing thousands of micro-expressions, tonal shifts, and behavioral patterns every single second. Documented psychological studies show that when we validate our own internal warnings, our cortisol levels stabilize. By standing firmly in your clarity, you stop internalizing the betrayal of others. You build an energetic immunity. You begin to realize that when you feel an immediate, visceral sense of unease around someone, you do not owe them an explanation, a second chance, or an apology. You simply owe yourself the safety of walking away. The third reality that shifts is the destruction of the one-sided social contract you have been silently participating in for years. Empaths are notorious for over-functioning in relationships, doing 90% of the emotional lifting while the other person extracts their energy. You apologize for being too sensitive whenever their careless words cut you, effectively teaching them exactly how much pain you are willing to tolerate. Consider an architectural structure built entirely on a faulty foundation. If one pillar tries to hold up the entire roof while the other pillars decay, the system will eventually experience a paralyzing collapse. Now here's the part that makes this genuinely dangerous to certain people. The moment you stop apologizing, you stop holding up the decaying pillars of toxic relationships. You step back and allow the relationship to find its true equilibrium. If your lack of an apology causes the connection to shatter completely, let it break. It means the entire dynamic was dependent on your compliance and your willingness to stay small. Walking away without an explanation is not an act of malice. It is a calculated measure of self-preservation. You are finally recognizing that you are a rare, deeply valuable soul, and your presence is a privilege that must be earned, not a commodity to be cheapened. The fourth transformation involves changing how you interact with the world at large. For decades, the sheer weight of feeling everything made you want to hide. You felt empty, shattered and drained by grocery store lines, crowded workspaces, and superficial friendships. You assumed your empathy was a curse that forced you into isolation. Here's a fun fact that genuinely blew my mind when I looked into systemic biological modeling. The most resilient ecosystems are not the ones that lock themselves away from the world, but the ones that possess highly sophisticated, selective filtration systems. Your sensitivity was never meant to make you a hermit. It was meant to make you a master of discernment. When you stop apologizing, you stop letting the world flood your system indiscriminately. You learn to install a psychological valve. You can feel the grief of the world. You can sense the pain of a friend, but you no longer allow it to breach the core of your being. You observe the emotion without absorbing the impact. This mental shift alters your entire life path because it transforms raw, paralyzing vulnerability into an elevated form of dangerous, protective intelligence. The final phase of this journey is the birth of the sovereign empath. A sovereign empath is someone who has been through the fire of narcissistic manipulation, survived the agony of systemic gaslighting, and emerged completely transformed. They no longer look for external validation to prove that their feelings are real. They know they are real. Let us look at how ancient metals are forged. A raw piece of iron is soft, easily bent, and vulnerable to environmental elements. But when it is put through the extreme heat of the furnace and hammered repeatedly, its molecular structure changes, turning it into tempered steel. And here is the truth nobody tells you. Your encounters with emotional abuse, manipulation, and profound betrayal were the furnace. It was an agonizing, devastating process that nearly destroyed you. But by choosing peace over compliance and clarity over comfort, you have been forged. You are no longer that soft, easily manipulated piece of iron. You are whole, integrated, and completely done performing for people who only value you when you are bleeding for them. That is not a loss of your empathy. That is the ultimate activation of your power. So here is the truth nobody tells you, and it is the final truth that changes everything. Your empathy was never a defect designed to make you a victim. It was an apex predator trait disguised as vulnerability, meant to weed out the predators who feed on the weak. The world told you to dim your light because your brightness made their darkness visible, and you believed them. You shrank, you bled, and you broke your own heart trying to keep them warm. But you are done apologizing for the depth of your soul. You are done begging for permission to exist in your full, brilliant power. You are a deeply feeling, highly perceptive force of nature. And from this day forward, your boundaries are absolute. Your peace is untouchable, and your clarity is a sovereign law. Never forget that choosing yourself is not an act of abandonment toward others. It is a sacred act of commitment to your own soul. You have run on empty for far too long, and it is time to come home to yourself. I want to know your story, because your voice matters to this community. Please leave a comment below and let me know which reframe hit the hardest for you today. Have you ever experienced that profound moment where you finally stopped apologizing? I read every single one. If this message resonated with you, please share this video with just one person in your life who needs to hear this truth today. Thank you for being here, and remember to keep thriving.